You ever wonder why some people are so easy to break? Not just in war, not just in politics. I'm talking about real life, your office, your school, your family. Some people walk into a room and before they even speak, they've already lost. You can feel it. They reek of fear, of need, of desperation for validation. And when a stronger presence enters the room, confident, composed, cold, they shrink. They obey, without being asked. Now here's the truth no one dares to say. Weak people don't get dominated by accident. They invite it. They crave it. And they always get what they secretly expect, to be controlled. I need you to understand this, because if you don't, you're the prey. You'll spend your life bowing to people who aren't smarter than you, not stronger than you, but simply more ruthless. And one day you'll look in the mirror and realize you've lived a life on your knees. This video isn't here to pat you on the back. It's here to rip the blindfold off. You're going to see the game for what it is. Why the weak get crushed. How domination works in silence. And what you must become. If you ever want to be free. Let's begin where it always begins. Inside the mind of the weak. They look normal on the outside. They smile, nod, laugh politely. But deep inside, they are starving. Starving for acceptance. Starving for love. Starving for someone to tell them who to be. They were never taught to hold the steering wheel of their own life. So when someone else grabs it, they feel relief. Not fear. A controlling boyfriend. A manipulative boss. A cruel father. They fall in line without a second thought. Because they were conditioned to believe, if I stay small, I'll stay safe. But you and I both know that's a lie. Let me take you back. There was a boy in my high school. Quiet. Always looked at the floor. Never raised his voice. The bullies didn't even need a reason to hurt him. They could feel his fear. Like a dog smelling blood. He didn't fight back. He'd say, "It's fine. I'm used to it." That sentence has haunted me for years. I'm used to it. Used to being stepped on. Used to being dominated. You see, the first weakness isn't physical. It's mental surrender. A belief that you don't have the right to stand up. That survival means submission. But survival is never the end game. Power is. The second reason the weak are so easy to dominate is even darker. They lie to themselves. Constantly. They say, he's not that bad. When he controls who they talk to, they say, my boss is just tough. When he screams at them in front of coworkers, they say, it's better than being alone, while being slowly destroyed. Why? Because the truth is too painful. Admitting they're being dominated means admitting they are weak, and the ego would rather bleed quietly than scream for help. So they build mental cages, rationalizations, excuses, anything to avoid confrontation. But here's the irony. Every lie they tell themselves becomes a chain. Every time they say, it's not that bad, they sink deeper, until one day, they can't even imagine freedom, only comfort, only quiet, only survival. I'll tell you another story. A woman I once knew, smart, educated, charismatic. She married a man who didn't love her. He mocked her, controlled her money, isolated her from friends, but she stayed. When I asked her why, her answer stunned me. She said, because if I leave, I'll have to admit I wasted 10 years of my life. And there it is. The sunk cost of weakness. Some people stay under the boot just to pretend the boot was never there. But not you. You didn't click this video by accident. Something in you is already waking up. The rebel. The wolf. The strategist. You're beginning to see what most people die without ever realizing. Being nice doesn't keep you safe. Being weak doesn't make you lovable. The world doesn't reward your intentions. It rewards your strength, your clarity, your willingness to play the game others are too afraid to see. So now I ask you, what kind of life do you want? Do you want to be the one who's always chosen second? Always nodding, always pleasing, always tolerating? Or do you want to walk into a room and know no one owns you, no one controls you, No one dares. You're starting to see the game, aren't you? But there's more. So much more. Because the world doesn't just exploit the weak. It uses them like pawns, like shields, like weapons. And the powerful, they know exactly how to keep them small. Let me show you how that manipulation works, how the game is played at a deeper level, and why even strong people can fall if they're not paying attention. Let's go deeper. They don't need chains anymore. They don't need prisons. All it takes is one whisper in the right ear, and the weak will police themselves. You've seen it. That a man starts to rise. More confident, more clear, more dangerous. Suddenly, the people around him, people who once clapped when he played small, start to shift. They call him arrogant, too intense, too much. But listen closely. That's not fear. That's strategy. Because once a person breaks free from weakness, the system panics. Not a political system. Not a school or a job. I'm talking about the emotional system of weak people. They survive by keeping others close to their level. And anyone who rises must be brought back down. This is the third dark truth. The weak do not only submit, they sabotage. Not because they're evil, but because your strength reminds them of their chains, and nothing is more unbearable than the reflection of what they could have been. So what do? They laugh behind your back. They question your motives. They whisper, "He's changed." They plant doubt, subtly, expertly, like cowards in camouflage. But here's the trick they don't know. A strong mind can feel the manipulation before it lands, because power isn't just about what you do, it's about what you see, what you sense, what you refuse to ignore. Let me show you how it works. In a corporate office, there was a man named Elias, quiet but razor sharp, never played the gossip game, always stayed focused. And slowly he rose, not by begging, not by pleasing, but by being untouchable. He had no emotional leaks, no need for attention, no need for approval. The others couldn't handle it. They created rumors, tried to bait him, tried to paint him cold and heartless, but Elias knew the rule. The moment you explain yourself to the weak, you lose. So he never did. He just kept building, until one day, the same people who mocked him were working under him. That's the game. Weakness always screams. Power doesn't need to. And that leads to the fourth reason they're so easy to dominate. They confuse kindness with safety. A manipulator smiles, compliments, listens. They drop phrases like, "I just want what's best for you. Trust me. I've got your back. You're overthinking it." And the weak fall for it every time. Because they don't listen to patterns. They listen to tone. Vibes. The illusion of warmth. But strength watches. Strength waits. Strength tracks what people do, not what they say. It's not paranoia. It's clarity. Because when you stop being weak, you stop needing stories to feel good. You don't need to believe someone meant well. You see the knife, even when it's coated in sugar. You ever notice how the strong sit differently? They don't fidget. They don't seek eyes. They don't fill silence with small talk, because they don't fear the space. The weak, they can't handle silence. They'll say anything, agree with anything, laugh at anything, just to be accepted. That's the deadliest trait of the dominated. They betray themselves before anyone else gets the chance. And that's the fifth truth. You want to dominate the weak? Just wait. They'll hand you the blueprint. Their insecurities, their fears, their traumas. They'll give it all away in the first 10 minutes, just to feel seen. The predator just has to listen. That's how it works in nature. The prey makes itself known, with nervous eyes, with scattered movement, with emotional noise, but a lion, still silent, watching. And when the moment is right, one move. No hesitation, no drama, just results. You want to stop being dominated? Start by saying less, feeling less, wanting less. Because when you need less from people, they lose control over you. Don't announce your growth. Don't beg to be understood. Let them misunderstand you. Let them fear your silence. Let them squirm in the presence of your calm. That's when you begin to shift. That's when the predator looks at you, and thinks twice. Because you're no longer reacting, you're calculating. You're no longer hoping, you're observing, you're no longer begging, you're becoming. But be warned, the moment you begin to master this, you become a threat. Not because you attack, but because you no longer need to submit. And to the emotionally fragile, that's the most dangerous thing you can be. A person who cannot be emotionally manipulated, cannot be owned. You ready for that level of freedom? Good, because we're about to go deeper. Now that you know how domination works from the outside, I'm going to show you how it works from the inside. The subtle traps the mind sets for itself. The invisible habits that make you weak without even knowing it. And what you must kill in yourself to be truly untouchable. It's time for transformation. Do you want to know the most terrifying truth? Most people are not dominated by others. They're dominated by themselves. They build their own cages, lock the door, swallow the key, and then they sit there, blaming the world. But you came here to see the chains. To burn them. So let's go deeper. Weakness doesn't start with fear. It starts with fantasy. The fantasy that people will play fair, that being nice will earn you protection, that if you don't rock the boat, the sharks won't notice you. That's the delusion. And it's the first thing you must kill. Because the moment you walk into this world thinking it owes you comfort, safety, or fairness, you've already lost. Weak people operate from hope. Strong people operate from strategy. Hope is soft. It waits. Strategy acts. You ever seen a man in denial? He keeps giving chances, keeps smiling through betrayal, keeps saying, they didn't mean it, keeps forgiving people who would set him on fire if it made them feel warm. That's not compassion. That's self-betrayal, and it's lethal. Because here's the truth that will gut you if you're not ready. People treat you exactly how you train them to. Every time you ignore the red flag, every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you stay silent to keep the peace, you're training the world to own you. The predator doesn't need to roar. You already showed your throat. But here's where it shifts. The strong start by changing the inner narrative. That voice in your head that says, be careful. Don't upset them. Maybe you're overreacting. Just let it go. Kill it. That voice is not your conscience, it's your conditioning. It's the ghost of all the moments you let others win while you shrank. It's the echo of 1,000 apologies you never owed. And if you don't take that voice by the throat and silence it, it will sabotage every room you walk into. The transformation begins here. You stop negotiating with your weakness, and no more justifying fear, and no more romanticizing suffering, and no more pretending you're being the bigger person when you're really just afraid of conflict. Power doesn't whisper, it doesn't ask for permission to exist. You've been taught that being strong means being cold, that dominance is cruelty, that resilience is toxic. Lies. Lies fed to you by people who benefit from your obedience. But here's the real law. Power is not about hurting others. Power is about never being hurt on someone else's terms again. Let me tell you a story. A girl named Mira. Quiet, kind, empathic. She grew up thinking love meant sacrificing herself. She gave, and gave, and gave, until she had nothing left. Family drained her. Friends took advantage. Every relationship ended the same way, her shattered and apologizing, until one day, something snapped. She stopped answering texts, cut off the leeches, started therapy, started lifting, started reading the books no one wanted her to read. The ones that taught her about boundaries, power, and the art of saying no. People said she was changing. Damn right she was. She went from being a doormat to being untouchable. And here's what shocked her most. The people who once called her kind turned on her when she had strength. Why? Because her weakness served them. Her power didn't. That's how you know you're becoming dangerous. When people stop liking you, but they start respecting you. Respect beats approval. Every time. That's the final shift you must make. Stop chasing being liked. Start becoming respected. Not by yelling, not by threatening, but by becoming the kind of person who can walk away from anything and anyone. No guilt, fear. No explanation. You don't need people who only love you when you're weak. You need to become the person who scares manipulators. Not because you attack, but because you can't be emotionally blackmailed. The moment someone realizes you'll choose peace over approval, they lose their grip, and you finally get to breathe. Because domination doesn't always look like chains. Sometimes, it looks like the quiet freedom of not needing anyone to validate your worth. That's where you're headed. Where the people who used to toy with you now tread lightly. Where the games that once triggered you now bore you. Where you don't just spot manipulation, you dismantle it. Not with rage, but with stillness, a look, a pause, a silence that says, I see through you, and I'm not playing anymore. That's the transformation. You're no longer prey, you're no longer polite, you're no longer a target. You are the storm they didn't expect, and the final phase. We go even deeper. I'm going to reveal what happens after you rise. The new enemies, the darker temptations, the final test of power. Because the journey doesn't end when you become strong. It begins when you're finally tested by others who are strong too. Are you ready for that final threshold? Now you know what it feels like to wake up. The illusions are shattered. The fake kindness, the soft manipulation, the sweet poison. Exposed, you see it now. All of it. But that's not the end. That's just the door. Because here's the real twist. The moment you stop being weak, the world doesn't applaud. It tests you harder. You rise, and suddenly the air gets thinner. The looks get colder. The attacks grow sharper, not because you're failing, but because you're no longer easy. See, the second you show strength, you stop being invisible to the predators. You become a threat. And threats must be either destroyed or respected. So what do? They send new manipulators, more subtle, more polished. The ones who act like mentors. The ones who say, I see potential in you, as long as you follow my way. Don't be fooled. Power attracts power, but it also provokes it. And now, you've become what the old version of you couldn't even comprehend. You're no longer trying to survive, you're learning to command, and command comes with a price. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You will be called cruel, distant, too intense. Let them talk. Let them choke on the dust you leave behind. Because here's what they'll never say out loud. The part that scares them the most. They need weak people, they depend on obedience, they feed on self-doubt. And you've stepped out of the pen. You're not livestock anymore. You're a wolf among sheep. Not because you want to hurt them, but because you refuse to be hurted. Now here's the real final truth. Weak people are not just dominated by others. They are recruited into systems designed to keep everyone else weak, too. They enforce the rules they're too afraid to break. They shame the rebels, mock the warriors, worship the cage. Why? Because nothing threatens a slave more than the one who escaped and never looked back. But you didn't come this far to be pulled back in. You came here to become sovereign, unowned, unshaken, unapologetically dangerous in your clarity. And let's talk about what that life looks like now. You walk into a room and feel no urge to prove yourself, no desperation to be liked, no fear of being disliked. Because you know, approval is for sale, but respect is earned in silence. You speak when it matters. You walk away without a flinch. You don't argue with fools. You don't flinch at threats. You don't chase, you choose. You don't beg, you build. You don't fold. You watch the table burn and walk out untouched. That is self-mastery, and it doesn't make you perfect. It makes you free. Free from emotional puppeteers. Free from toxic family. Free from systems that trained you to be small and grateful. Because gratitude is beautiful, but obedience is not. And when someone tells you, you've changed, smile. Because you're supposed to. The caterpillar dies. The warrior rises. The weapon is sharpened. And here's the last thing I'll tell you. The part most self-help gurus will never say. Not everyone can be saved. Not everyone should be. Some people will stay weak because it's comfortable, because victimhood is easier than power, because they fear what happens when they run out of excuses. And that's not your problem. Your job is not to pull others out of hell. Your job is to become so free they start questioning their own chains. Live in such a way that your very presence forces people to choose. Grow or stay afraid. Now listen to me carefully, because this is the final line they'll remember you by. You were never born to be tamed. You were never born to be dominated. You were born to be disciplined enough to be dangerous, and wise enough to never be used again, so let the world watch you now. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how the quiet one became a force of nature. Because once you were weak. Now you are a lesson. And the next time someone tries to play with your mind, they'll remember your eyes. Cold, clear, unapologetically powerful. You are not the prey. You are the mirror. And when they look into you, they'll see everything they could have been. If only they weren't so easy to dominate. Now do one thing if this hit your soul. If it woke something in you, I want you to comment below. Tell me, what chain did I just help you break? Like this video. Subscribe. Because this is just the beginning. And the world needs fewer followers and more sovereign minds. Stay sharp. Stay silent. Stay sovereign.